Hey, I'm Tropical Bird. Most of what I do on this channel is animation, but I figured this saga is pretty relevant to anyone who would watch Clone Wars fan animations. I've wanted to make Mandalorian armor for a very long time, but it wasn't until my friend Raptor got a 3D printer and started dragging me by the arm that I actually started working on it. Little background on the character. Sentra, yes, like the Nissan, has been my main Mandalorian character for about 5 years now. She's in a lot of my Starpoint AU animatics. Starpoint is a Star Wars AU, where Palpatine is killed before Order 66 happens by a rival Sith Lord from the Unknown regions. It's been going for about 7 years now, so there are a ton of plotlines I could have followed with the animatics. But, as a result of a Minecraft PvP battle done in the year 2017, it was decided that my brother's character would have the Darksaber, and then he stopped playing. So I got the Darksaber. Sentra became the main Mandalorian Starpoint, so I started animating the Mandalorian plotline. Does this make her a Mary Sue? Possibly. Isn't the red hair making her literally discount Bo-Katan? I did not think about that when designing her, I just thought it would be funny if orange was her main defining character trait. Her helmet's pretty close to standard Night Owl, but with a lip and a slightly more angular visor. Using a Bo-Katan sculpt could pretty easily be justified as a stylistic choice. However, I've drawn this helmet over 100 times at this point. I've used a Bo-Katan sculpt as reference for this helmet before, and I hated how it looked. This helmet needs to be, very specifically, slightly more angular than a normal Night Owl for me to enjoy it. Which brings me to...
Cue the montage and then play some upbeat music.
Well, the thing is, I kind of don't want to put all this in the montage because I don't want anyone doing the same thing I did because what I did is bad. This is not a tutorial. I could not find a tutorial on how to do this because I don't think it's supposed to be done. I think that if you're doing a custom Mandalorian helmet sculpt, you normally start from zero, or a low poly model, or edit it in a software that's meant for high poly modeling. That said, I started with a Galactic Armory file for Bo-Katan, and the only modeling software I know is Blender. The first thing I did was model the new faceplate I wanted over the old one and hit it with some modifiers to make it high poly. So far, this is a normal modeling workflow. Then, I began the process of attaching it. The only real option for attaching something so high poly is a dark and forbidden magic called the Boolean. Booleans are very moody. Sometimes they don't work for no reason. Sometimes you need to cut the model in half in order to get them to cooperate. Sometimes the only option that works is the one that leaves interior faces. But in order to get the printer to like your model, you can't have any interior faces, because then it'll start trying to print on top of the internal structure. So then you have to go back through and delete them all manually. While you watch my many hours of suffering, let's talk about some more lore. Sentra was in the Death Watch during most of the Clone War, and somewhat accidentally interrupted the Sith Empire's plan to install a puppet ruler before they invaded Mandalore. She was the leader on Mandalore for around 6 months before the Sith invaded, and then she spent most of her rule on the run. She eventually joins the rebellion, made up mostly of Republic remnants, and fights the Sith with them, to the immense annoyance of Clone Major Case. Sentra is a horrible leader, she has no Mandalorian pride, she flees Mandalore during the invasion, and it haunts her for the rest of her life. But she'd kill for any of her friends, and that ends up being her driving motivation during the war. Now back to sculpting. Now we have to fix this nightmare. In Blender Sculpt mode, you can mask out the exterior faces so you don't accidentally edit them, then hit the inside with the sculpting tools until it's acceptable. This is why topology matters, because it tried to smooth this out, but the computer's having a stroke because it looks like this. It's like a web.
It won't.
It won't, because it doesn't need to. It's far from perfect. It's got this weird interior dent I didn't care to fix, and the lip is uneven. It still says it's not watertight, but I don't know where. No?
I just don't know what it wants. We ignore it.
Yeah, we do ignore it. But she is Sentra. Look, this is Raptor's printer. It's printing my helmet. Psych, it's too small. We really should have done a fit test beforehand. It's funny this happened because canonically this character has probably had multiple sizes of helmet. Sentra Asura's helmet originally belonged to Ultima Asura. Yes, also like the car, half of the Mandalorians are named after cars now, before her death in the Battle of Galantran. The Mandalorian family tree in Starpoint is very complex, but Sentra's a foundling, so she's not genetically related to any other Mandalorians. Sentra's family Moof farm was burned down by political rivals of her parents, and Sentra was adopted by Lyons Asura, who passed the helmet down to her. The thing is, Ultima's helmet doesn't have a lip, and Centra wears it as a child, so it's implied it might have been melted down and reforged. But because you can't reforge filament, this ended up being sanding practice for me. As I understand it, because it prints in many tiny layers of filament, we need to fill in the little gaps and smooth down the bumps. If you're doing this, please follow one of the tutorials in the description. I don't know what I'm doing. First, we wet sand down the bumps. Then, we hit it with filler primer to fill in the gaps. Then we wet sand back down the bumps we built up with the filler primer. This may seem redundant, but it gets slightly smoother with every layer.
Now that I'm thinking about it, maybe I should be careful about standing next to the cancer chemicals.
We can also hit the larger gaps with Bondo and dry sand that down until it's smooth again.
Remember kids, wear your masks when using Bondo.
You can also use modeling paste. It's less toxic, but a little harder to work with. And what is cosplay if you're not at risk of huffing something toxic?
Drone shot. Yep, I don't know. Helmets.
It's at this point I must point out that because I mirrored the mesh to get the boolean to work, it's no longer compatible with the Galactic Armory rangefinder side pieces. So Raptor attacked it with the screwdriver. Honestly, par for the course at this point in the project. I really wanted to paint her safety orange because it's the funny ochre color, but it was an enamel-based paint and we didn't know how it would react with the acrylic-based paint. We started with a layer of matte black. I was terrified to do this because of my horrible form spraying filler primer, so Raptor demonstrated. I copied him as closely as I could, even down to spraying right-handed.
You're doing it in Word.
I am not spraying with my left hand. A very odd choice, considering that's not my dominant hand. After leaving that to dry, we broke out the masking tape to add a metallic undercoat to everywhere we wanted to weather. In hindsight, we should have masked it off with liquid latex, because scratching off the paint on top did not work. At this point, Raptor had given up on pretending I was going to spray the paint without him, so he did this coat himself.
Butterfly, if you land on here, you will be coated.
Oh, he's gone. Centra's normal design doesn't have any weathering, but making a physical helmet with no weathering looks a little bit odd. This specific design is her most iconic because of its resemblance to a traffic cone, but she has many alternate costumes. Her first design is Jorts Centra. To this day, I don't know what compelled me to give her jorts, but it's canon. Then it's implied she has her normal design, but very shortly after, she moves to Deathwatch Blue. Then Trial of Mandalore happens and she goes back to orange. This is her dominant design all the way until her cape is disintegrated fighting her brother, and she transitions to stealing Case's equipment, for no reason in particular. Then the lore gets considerably more complicated, so I'll leave that for another time. Now we get to the most exciting part, the orange! The reason she's orange is because my favorite ice hockey player, Ilya Briskalov, was playing for the Flyers at the time I created her. You may not know him, but he can be attributed with some of the most iconic quotes in professional ice hockey.
What's your mindset going into tomorrow?
Make sure I'm not forget early in the morning my thermos, put some iced tea, and enjoy the bench.
What's going to be like playing in front of the crowd that size?
I can't tell you because I'm not going to play.
In order to get a suitably random amount of weathering on the dome, we used the ball of tape method on the wet orange paint. Once that was done, we hit it with a final coat of white paint on the faceplate and markings. And then, the terrifying process of chipping and scratching the other layers of paint to bring the metallic out. This did not end up working, so we went over it with some metallic on a foam brush. And again, that didn't even work because the clear coat made it look gray. Then came black wash. It was important the side pieces were on before we did this, so the wash would actually get stuck in the crevices on the side. Raptor did them without me because he had to print them at a few different sizes to see which ones fit. The wash brought out the scuffing nicely and gave the whole helmet some texture to it, but nothing feels more like ruining your helmet than seeing it coated in watered down acrylic. The first clear coat we used was matte. It gave the helmet an almost frosty finish that works really well on animated style clone helmets, but dulled the orange more than I liked. In the end, we used a satin clear coat, which was a lot more to my liking. The visor is a replacement welding shield attached with a copious amount of epoxy. We also added just a tiny bit of foam to the interior. Here's the final helmet. I was really scared the orange wasn't going to be obnoxious enough, but I'm really happy with how it came out. I will be making full armor eventually, but wearing Ilya's Winter Classic jersey with this is no doubt in the spirit of the character. If you hit me with the car while I was wearing this, there would be no doubt it was intentional.
I'm so proud of you for not being terrified.
Raptor also started his own helmet Instagram where he posts his customs. I couldn't have done any of this without his help, and he's a great helmet painter, so I'd check him out. Look at his hard case. He masked all of this by himself without a template. It took like 6 hours. I could never. If you're interested in watching me try and adapt this very animation-friendly design into live action, or you want me to explain the other half of Cintra's lore where she dies, stay tuned. I'll be doing a segment recording each major piece of armor. And if you want to support me, I have a Ko-Fi and a print of a different red-headed Mandalore you can purchase. Till then, take care.